Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards. I am Vice Chairman of the Majors Planning Committee. I will be chairing this evening's meeting. A warm welcome to you all and anybody who may be following us online. We are broadcasting on YouTube. The camera is above you. It's facing this way, so members in the public gallery are not visible. However, we all are, and anybody who may speak as a petitioner will also be visible. But a very warm welcome to you. Normal preliminary announcements. Fire alarm, we're not expecting one, so if it goes off, we will be evacuating. The quickest and easiest way of leaving the building is probably the way you came in. Back out here, turn right all the way back down to the entrance, and we'll assemble in the Civic Forecourt. If for whatever reason you cannot get out of that door, there are fire exits behind you. Behind us, sorry, to your front over here. Don't worry though, because we will be leaving at the same time, and we will assure you that you are safely evacuated. We're not expecting any incident though. Mobile devices. We had a little dry run earlier. Please, if I could ask them all to be turned off, that would be most helpful and stops the meeting being interrupted. Residents' feedback forms. There are feedback forms on your desk, on your chairs, and we do appreciate any comments you may provide us to improve our organisation and running of the meeting. We do hold them in the public forum, and it is important that our residents do get the maximum benefit from them. So please let us know your thoughts on how we do. And for anybody who's following us online, you may also provide feedback. There is a drop-down menu or a pull-up menu tag somewhere on the screen enabling you to access the feedback form. Okay, how is the meeting going to be run? It's all in public tonight, which makes it simple. However, as I say, it is a meeting in public, not a public meeting, so there are no general speaking rights. That means I must ask members of the public to just refrain from interrupting, if I may. The only people allowed to speak are those who have presented a petition and the agent or applicant in their response. That is described, and it's in the papers that were available to you. We do have one petition item this evening, and when we get to that, I will talk about the speaking time. Number of people around the table tonight. You may wonder who we are and what we're doing. Let me introduce you to the committee members. These are councillors who will be voting on the applications. On my far right-hand side, Councillor Stead, Councillor Ahmed Bolana, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Yarrow, and on my left-hand side, far left-hand side, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Curling, Councillor Oswald. As I say, they are the committee members that vote. As chair, I will only act as a casting vote in the event of a tie, which is very unusual and probably unlikely this evening. We're assisted tonight by an officer team. On my far left-hand side, we have Rosen Hogan, who is our planning lawyer. Anisha Teji is a Democratic Services Officer and is menacing the meeting, keeping a clear record of it for us all. Meg Harani is our planning team manager, will give me planning advice as necessary, and committee members. Neil McClellan is also in a planning team and will be presenting the applications. And Manmohan Ranger is our highways officer, will give us advice on highways. There are a few little bits of preliminary business to go through. We whistle through them very quickly before we get into the meat of them, of the business, which are the actual applications. But please forgive me while we just dance through a little bit of formality. We take item number 1, apologies for absence, please.
Apologies received from Councillor Eddie Lavery with Councillor Ahmed Walana substituting.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any additional declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting not registered yet? No. Thank you. Confirm under item 3 that there are no matters that have been notified in advance or urgent, and I can confirm as item 4 that everything is going to be heard in part 1. There you go, that's 4 agenda items gone. I wish all meetings were that quick. We're now into the meat of the business. Agenda item number 5, please. We will turn to the former Frank Welsh Court, High Meadow Close.
Thank you, Chair. The application site comprises the former Frank Welsh Court, a now demolished care home situated on the southern side of Highmead Close here, which is a short spur road off Daymar Gardens, which is a residential cul-de-sac. Planning permission was granted in 2013 for the erection of a replacement 45-bed care home, which is currently being built. That's a site boundary. There's no particular constraints in terms of policy constraints. The current application seeks permission to add 3 first-floor extensions to the previously approved development. So that's the aerial photographs. You can see it's quite a tight site, enclosed on all sides by residential back gardens. That's the footprint of the approved building. So you can see the proximity of rear gardens around the site. So this is an attempt. This is a comparison of the proposed first floor and the consented first floor. So the consented first floor is the black and white drawing at the bottom. This is the proposed alteration. So you can see here that is currently a single-storey element in the approved plan, and the proposal is to add an extra floor with 2 bedrooms in it there. There's also a single-storey element on the approved scheme there, which will again have a first-floor extension with 2 bedrooms in it here. And then this section here is a single-storey linking section, which links the two elements of the scheme as approved. And the proposal is to put a first-floor linking section here, and there's actually one extra bedroom incorporated into that linking extension. So those are the main sort of changes to the envelope of the building. If I go down, I can try and show you those in elevation. So this is the approved elevation, that's the single-storey element, and that's the additional floor there. You can just see at the end here, the plan's cut off there, but you can see that's the linking element which goes across there. That's another view of the linking element a bit further along, so you can see nothing there on the approved plan, and that's proposed. And then that's another from the other side. That's linking element from the other side, and there's another single-storey element there with a first floor extension. So this is a 3D visualization of the proposal. So this is extra element here, extra element, linking element there, and I think I'm right in saying that that's where the other first floor extension is. So it's creating 5 additional rooms, one on the northwest elevation, one on the southeast elevation. Those each contain 2 additional rooms, and then the first floor linking extension will also include 1 additional bedroom. It's proposed that the basement be reduced from that currently approved, and permission is also sought for 6 smoke vent shafts to service that basement. The basement just contains ancillary space. There's no parking involved. The approved 45-bedroom care home comprises a large building within the residential area. However, it was carefully designed to be as visually discreet as possible. As such, where the building was located close to the site boundaries, it was reduced in height, not only to protect the amenities of adjoining residents, but also to give the development a more spacious and open setting. I'll just go to some photos. So you can see this is work within the site, so you can see work is well underway. This is a view from the rear garden of a property of number 7 Larkwood Rise. So you can see how close the proposed scheme is. The additional first floor is here, so it will be coming closer to that property. And that's another view from the same garden, looking at another element of the scheme, and there. And this is from, I think, 8 Larkwood Rise. So again, you can see, I think they're more affected by the linking section, which I think goes in there. So you can see it was quite a tight site, so it was carefully designed to fit within that. So officers' view is the proposed extensions would appear as incongruous and awkward additions to the care home, adding to the overall bulk of the building, particularly on its sensitive boundaries, resulting in it failing to satisfactorily harmonise with its residential setting. Officers consider that extensions would also appear unduly dominant from neighbouring properties. The scheme is therefore recommended for refusal on visual and residential amenity grounds. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Koski, if you'd like to come forward, sir. The table there. Before you, you'll see a microphone, and there's a button at the front. It's important that we use the microphone, as that's the only... Please make yourself comfortable, sit down. It's the only way you can be heard on YouTube. And it's important that we do capture it all. Okay, now you will have 5 minutes speaking time when you start. and we'll control the time with lights. You will see lighting for 4 minutes of green and 1 minute of amber, and when your time is up, you'll see a red light, and at that point I must draw you to a close to be fair to everybody, okay? So at your own time, at your own convenience, don't forget to toggle on the microphone, and then we will start, okay?
As you might know, this development has been controversial from the beginning, situated in what was a quiet, purely residential neighbourhood and replacing a much smaller building. That was not a care home, but a 31-flat residential building with one warden and had very little impact on its surroundings. The applicant's design and access statement claims there is a realisation of how well the building fits into its surroundings now that it is substantially complete, and the extensions would not significantly increase the visual impact of the building. The residents consider the opposite to be true, as we have been genuinely shocked and dismayed at the scale, height and intrusive and dominating nature of these buildings. Our surprise is largely due to the visualizations we were shown during the planning process. The CGIs presented by the developers have turned out to be totally misleading. They illustrate buildings barely visible behind the fence line and at a significantly greater distance than the reality. This trend of visual manipulation is continued in the new design and access statement by the use of a very wide-angle lens for the photographs. Also, the submitted aerial view drawings give a false impression of the boundary and roof profiles. In the 2012 meeting, the developers' representatives stated that the windows on the first floor would be located and angled so they did not impact or overlook adjoining properties. This has also proved to be false, as residents bordering the site find that they are directly overlooked by multiple large windows. The proposed extensions could only exacerbate this situation. They would bring the most visible parts of the building much closer to the surrounding properties, leaving those residents with the structure looming over them with the increased associated light pollution. Furthermore, Larkswood Rise homes suffer additionally as they are at a substantially lower level than the building. The proposed additional first floor link reverses one of the key adjustments made to satisfy Hillingdon's urban design officer to try and keep the building's design in keeping with the surrounding area. The partial break in the building does provide some reprieve to an otherwise dominating mass. The basement extension application granted in June 2014 was expressly to allow communication between the buildings at an underground level, so there are already 2 levels of connection here. The developers have produced another traffic and parking report, more vociferous than the previous ones, but still deeply flawed. It focuses on 7-year-old data for 3 homes in Harrow, Ilford and Woolwich, all with excellent road and public transport links. They could have looked instead, as we did, at Aston House in Hayes or Cedar House in Harefield, both similarly sized but with more parking than High Meadow Close. There they would have seen significant parking issues despite much closer public transport links. Please remember that one of the key reasons given for the demolition of Frank Welsh Court was the lack of safely accessible public transport, a situation now significantly worse due to a large increase in the traffic on Catlin's Lane resultant from traffic calming measures on Cuckoo Hill. Common sense makes it quite obvious that this care home for patients requiring a very high level of attention will generate significantly more traffic and parking requirement than claimed. Any increase in the size of the home is bound to aggravate what will already be a difficult problem. For over a year now, those surrounding the site have been subjected to daily severe disruption. With the developers' full knowledge, their contractors have ignored almost all aspects of the sequence of development document and many of Hillingdon's own bylaws and regulations. The high levels of noise created, often outside the legally permitted times, has caused stress and anxiety. Some of the many violations are illustrated in your handouts. This disruption was forecast to take a year. It now looks like 18 months, and obviously if any extensions are allowed, we will have to suffer for several more months. As this project has progressed, the local residents believe we have been misled and our concerns have been overlooked or ignored. We understand there is little, if anything, that can be done to redress what has already happened, but would ask that a line is now drawn and no further incremental erosion to our welfare is allowed to take place. Thank you for allowing me to make this brief presentation on behalf of the residents.
Thank you very much, sir. Before you leave, I'll just ask colleagues if they have any questions they wish to ask of you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for telling us the points that are disturbing residents. You did mention overlooking. Now that it is built, it's much closer and people are experiencing overlooking. Could you just confirm the properties that are suffering most from this, please?
All the properties which are actually bounded to the site to the north and to the south particularly. So the east and west profiles are a little bit more sheltered due to space at the end and tree line on the western end. But the five properties you see to the north there, and particularly also the properties to the south in Larkswood Drive, which are bungalows, are severely overlooked. I'm at number 18, which is the first of the houses to the north on the left edge there, that one, and we have at least 3 to 4 large windows which can see directly into our property. And if you go further along, between the building sections, the main part of the new development, about halfway along, there's a walkway stroke lounge area, which has got large glass windows, so they face out onto numbers 20, 22, and to an extent number 24, and they also have bedroom windows as well.
Thank you. Did you also say that Larkswood properties are at a lower level?
They are. The ground slopes from the northwest to the southeast in a downward direction. So the properties in Larkswood are actually on lower ground because that's the direction of the slope of the ground. Also, the properties in Larkswood are bungalows, so they're even more impacted from that point of view.
Could you give an indication of the level, the drop-in level that there might be over that?
It would be difficult for me to estimate. They are technical drawings, but I believe probably from the care home construction to Larkswood, there's probably about 1 metre to 2 metres drop. So there's a fairly significant slope across the ground.
Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you very much. You did state in your report to us that they have the company has breached building control standards.
Yeah.
Have you actually reported those to officers?
Many times, yes. They've been reported.
You have?
So the response has been mixed. Initially, we reported the infringement through the developers directly, hoping that they would take action. After a while, we realised that whatever action that they promised to take wasn't forthcoming, so we had then moved on to the council directly, and also Councillor Duncan Flynn, who's been quite helpful as well in contacting the council.
Okay.
So we've been in touch with the environmental departments, the unsociable behaviour departments, the green spaces, because they've done significant damage to the amenity spaces with backing trucks over and parking on the amenity space as well. So there have been various departments. What seems to happen is there's a sequence of events. Initially, the officer has come along and had a look and had a little chat with the site manager, who's always very friendly, and his reaction is terribly sorry, won't happen again. It doesn't change. Further phone calls have brought said representative back again, usually for a more formal talk, and certainly I know that I believe that notices have been served for noise infringement at one point. But then it becomes, I think it's a matter of manpower. I think there's a limited amount that the council have. They're very restricted on manpower, and in the end, nothing further happens.
Could I just begin to draw you to a close here? Because
yeah.
as impactful as those issues are, they're not
relevant
planning matters that we can consider when it comes to this. So whilst we will pick up that as an issue to ensure that residents are properly supported, it isn't really a consideration for this committee. So if I can draw you to a close there, is that all right?
Yeah.
Fine. Any other questions, colleagues, please? Thank you very much. So if I invite you to return to your seat, please. Thank you. And I understand Julian Boswell is present. Do you wish to speak, sir? If you'd like to come forward, make yourself comfortable. As I say, toggle on of the microphone. Once you do, 5 minutes speaking time for the green light, one with the amber, draw you to a close on the red. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer the criticisms levelled at this scheme. We're not the original architects, but are responsible for drawing up and submitting these proposals as we act for the contractor currently on site. As you know, the proposals comprise 5 bedrooms and a corridor link, all at first floor level. The client's intentions with this application are primarily twofold. One, to provide the link, which will undoubtedly improve circulation within the home by making the flow of movement more efficient. Communication between the two halves of the first floor will be established, and this has always been the intention of the client. From the home's viewpoint, the current arrangement is a compromise that will be an inconvenience to staff, who will find it more difficult to provide quick assistance to residents or fellow staff without this link. The second element is the proposed increase from 45 to 50 bedrooms. This makes for a more efficient use of the site, provides more facilities within the home, and these will be supported more readily at a more reasonable cost in the larger home, and there will be 5 more rooms available for people in need of the service being provided by the home. The planning officer's report uses I would consider to be subjective terms to critique the scheme. In the first instance, the extensions are cited as being incongruous and awkward additions that would add to the overall bulk of the building. This would erode the ability of this large building to sit comfortably within its residential setting. We do not agree that the extensions would appear as incongruous and awkward. We feel as though they are designed in a manner that fits in with the original design. And although they would of necessity add to the bulk of the building, we believe that it will still sit comfortably in its setting. The second point is that extensions would appear as intrusive and overbearing additions to the building, which would be detrimental to the residential amenities of adjoining residential occupiers at numbers 22 and 24 Daymore Gardens. There's 2 specific properties mentioned, and at 7 Lockswood Rise. In respect to whether the extensions would appear as intrusive and overbearing, we have the previous design met, and this design continues to meet the commonly accepted standards for distances between windows across ground which is held in the 2 ownerships, and the overall height and scale of the building is of 2 stories, and therefore we submit that the effects that are brought about by this current proposal are marginal and not significant. The proposed first floor bedroom extension that will sit in the line of sight of 24 Daymore Gardens will remain over 19 metres away and will have no flank windows overlooking the existing garden. There is substantial planting along the boundary. Equally, there's no direct overlooking to number 22, which is also further away. The addition of a first floor to this end of the care home will not significantly affect the amenity of these neighbouring gardens, in our view, particularly as these existing houses sit about a full story higher than the care home. I would note that some of the photos submitted under the petition are taken from the first floor of the houses, in Damer Gardens, and these views of the care home are not those that can be seen from the ground floor living spaces or from their gardens. The bedrooms proposed to sit in the southern corner of the site are seen in relation to the existing houses on Larkswood Rise and closest to number 7, as has been identified. The client intends to improve the screening along there to enhance the landscaping to provide additional benefit. There have been comments on the validity of the highway report submitted, and I've spoken with a consultant who prepared the report yesterday. Chris Vasey confirms that his report is entirely professionally objective and independent, and I believe that to be the case, and that the parking surveys were conducted at all broadly comparable care homes in outer northwest London and were done less than 4.5 years ago, not 7.
Draw you to a close at that point, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any questions? Councillor Yarrow.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. You said that at the start of your speech that the applicant it's always been their intention for this to be carried out.
Yeah.
In the early days, there's a lot of discussions took place in order to get this approved, and certain changes were made at the time in order that it would be able to fit in to the space that was being allocated.
Yes.
Are you saying that those changes that you agreed to were known all along, that you were going to partially build it and then apply for the changes to be put back again?
Well, as I said, I wasn't party to the original application, so I don't know precisely what was in the minds of those who applied for it. What I would say is that it does make common sense in terms of the way in which the care home operates, that it would have a link at first floor level. So there was originally the intention to have a link. It was decided to compromise, because many things in life are compromises, and in this particular instance it was agreed that the split would occur. The applicant is now, with not only with hindsight but also with the benefit of the building having been constructed, and with the ability of people to now consider the mass of the building on the site, is asking for that matter to be reconsidered.
Further questions, colleagues? Thank you very much, sir. Could I invite you please to turn the microphone off and then return to your seat? Thank you. And I just have an email that I've received from Councillor Duncan Flynn that's asked me to read it into record, as he is unfortunately unable to attend the meeting tonight. His comments start: while I appreciate that the applicant already has a planning consent for this site, this application presents an unacceptable increase in the size of the development. The site is surrounded by largely low-level residential accommodation in Larkswood Rise and Damer Gardens, and the extensions proposed by the applicant increase the scale of an already large development which dwarfs neighbouring properties. If approved, this application would fail to harmonise with the surrounding residential area and would dominate the skyline of the area to the detriment of the neighbouring properties. I'm aware that numerous residents are concerned about the impact of this application on their residential amenities. In my opinion, this application constitutes an overdevelopment of an already cramped site, and I urge the committee to support the recommendation from officers to refuse this application. So that's from Councillor Flynn. Matter for you, Councillor Oswald.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I thank the petitioner for the petition. That was really useful, especially getting the crib sheet. So I thank you for that. Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Yarrow is correct. There was quite a lot of discussion the first time around trying to make this fit. And I'm not against this in principle, because it's a much needed home for people that actually need it, and these facilities are far and few between. However, Chairman, this is quite clearly out of policy, and I don't think that I'm going to support the developers. I'm certainly going to support the officer's recommendation for refusal, but I won't move anything yet, because I suspect there's others who've got something to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Stead.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at that photograph there, where exactly is the boundary of the property and or the property that who that belongs to, and the new build that's taken place?
That is number 8, Larkwood Close, I beg your pardon. I think it's number 8, and I think, yeah, and the boundary is that line of vegetation you see there.
And you had another one with a sort of an end, that's it.
This is number 7. I think that's number 8 over the other side of the hedge. So that is the rear boundary, the equivalent of the rear boundary of all the gardens in Larkwood.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Higgins?
Just a question to the officers. I mean, what's built there is according to what the plans. They haven't gone past that, have they? Please, can someone tell me that?
I believe there is a current enforcement investigation, unresolved, just checking that is the case.
On the second point, just as a thing, I mean, we have this all the time, and to be honest, I get just a bit fed up. To be honest, we officers and everybody waste a lot of time, spend a lot of time. This is just now a waste of time when the application is a very small site. There's nothing wrong with the building. I can, if it was in a different place, there's not an issue, but it is where it is, and officers spend a lot of time working hard with developers to sort of encourage them to do the right thing. And here we are again, with another act coming, just trying to twist our arm and coming back and saying, well, we want this now. And it's just a point of order, really. It just really just makes me fed up. So there you go. And I'll so move the officer's recommendation. I have no problem with that.
Okay, before we... Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I was just quickly looking at the plans and the distance between number 8, Larkwood Grove, and the building as it's already constructed, and that distance that seemed to infringe our own policies. I know that we have had development on very tight sites before, and they have turned out to be wrong. We were assured of things at the time, and I would like that distance to be checked, because if that is the case, and it's less than 15 or 21, whichever is going to be applied, then I think that should be included as a reason within the reasons for refusal. I know it may be covered by the residential amenities of adjoining residential occupiers, and maybe that's an umbrella phrase to include those matters, but I think now that it's actually being built, what we see on plans sometimes isn't what actually goes up on site. The site may be just slightly different shape when the construction actually takes place, and this certainly looks as if it's slightly less than our standards. So I would like that checked, please, if possible, and included in the reason for refusal if it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harani, you wish to come in on that point?
Thank you, Chairman. If I can just point members to page 14, the last 2 paragraphs. It does summarise the distances and impact on 7 and 8 Larkwood Rise and the distances between the buildings. Clearly, Councillor Duncan has raised the issue about whether the building is being constructed in accordance with the approved plans, and enforcement officers are currently in the process of checking that. But the distances that are quoted there are in compliance with the council standards.
Thank you very much. Councillor Duncan, you wish to come again?
If it's still an ongoing matter of checking those distances, is that something that we need to have confirmed beforehand? Because if there is an infringement here, I would like that to be included, please.
If there is an infringement, that's an issue for enforcement, and obviously we'll be bringing forward an enforcement report if it's found that those distances are infringed upon, or the distances that were approved in 2013 are infringed upon, then that would be a matter for enforcement action, and we will obviously bring a report forward to the Committee for Enforcement.
Just, sorry to keep labouring this point, but just measuring it with paper, not with a scale, because I know we don't work like that anymore, but this is 15 metres here, this distance, and when you lay it out, it does seem to be closer, and actually looking at those photographs, it did seem to be closer. That's why I'm labouring the point, because if there is an issue, I would like us to pick it up now and be aware of it, rather than be very sorry about it afterwards.
I believe we will be picking that up. It is being picked up through the enforcement route. What hasn't been mentioned at the moment yet by colleagues, and I wish to just add on the table, is the break between the two buildings provided by not having that link at the first floor. And by that infill, for me, it significantly changes the massing of that building. And for me, I think that's quite an important thing to be recording. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I remember when this first came up a couple of years ago, and the reason that they stuck with a ground floor link only was to make it look like it's 3 separate buildings. By creating a link on the first floor, you're making it one continuous building when you're walking at street level. For that reason alone, I'm in favour of the officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. I don't detect anybody moving against that one. Councillor Kelly?
Just a bit of clarification on the photographs we've got. The agent mentioned that they were taken from an upper floor window. I've been going through the photographs, and most of them look as if they're at a lower level, so just a bit of clarification on what we're seeing.
I don't know if he's referring to the photos that the officer took on site, or whether the photos in your pack that were circulated by the applicants, but certainly the photos in the presentation are all taken from gardens or from streets, surrounding streets.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Councillor Stead.
Thank you, Chairman. If Councillor Oswell's statement about supporting the officer's recommendations is still going, I would like to add that I support that as well, Chairman.
So is somebody going to formally move? You move. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll move that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stead, I'll take you that. A show of hands then, please. There's everybody that is refused. Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 6, Warehouse, 50 Riverside Way, Uxbridge. Just hold on for a couple of seconds to allow members of the public to leave.
Thank you. The site is located between the Grand Union Canal and the River Colne. Might be clearer on the construction drawing. So that's the Grand Union, and that is the River Colne. The site is also located within a designated industrial business area. A 2-storey office building recently converted to flats under permitted development, that building there, currently occupies the rear portion of the site with a large parking area to the front. That's the parking area. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a 3-storey residential building on the former office car parking area on the front of the site to provide 16 2-bed self-contained flats, together with associated landscaping and parking and alterations to the fenestration, some limited alterations to fenestration of the existing converted office building. It is providing approximately 35% affordable housing, well, exactly 35% affordable housing, with a 10-year split of 70% social affordable rent and 30% intermediate. So the application proposes a fully policy-compliant affordable housing offer. Given tenure of the housing, the proposed housing pros and the site's location close to Uxbridge Town Centre, the proposed car parking provision is considered acceptable. And it should be noted that the proposed 3-storey building would be no taller than the existing converted 2-storey former office building, and I do have so that's an elevation of the proposed building, but I've also got, this is actually a superseded plan, because originally the proposed new building was going to be linked at first and second floor to the existing, but we got that link separated, but that gives you an indication of how high the proposed building is in relation to the office building. The Council's Environmental Protection Unit is satisfied that with appropriate conditions the scheme would be acceptable in terms of noise and air quality. A flood risk assessment has been submitted which the Council's Floodwater Management Officer considers to adequately demonstrate that the site and its future occupants will be safe from the risks of flooding and that surface water can be managed within the site. I'm just going to go back to the site layout because I'm conscious that this gives a better understanding of how the building will sit on the site. So that's the existing converted office, converted under permitted development through a prior approval process. This is the proposed new building. Parking is retained, including some stackers that meets our highways officers' requirements for the amount of parking to meet both schemes. There is amenity space provided. I think the report is quite honest and it explains why it might nominally meet the policy requirement. It isn't probably because of the way it's parcelled up, isn't the most usable of spaces. There's some there, but the main usable bit is this element adjacent to the canal here. The scheme is considered to comply with Council's adopted policies and guidance and is recommended for approval subject to conditions and Section 106 heads of terms set out in the report as amended in the addendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we I invite colleagues for some discussion, could you just go back to a larger aerial view of site and show where the closest alternative residences are other than the PD? Where is that one? Where are they?
So that is the office building that's been converted, but next set of resi is down here. So this is all part of the IBA.
Oh, so it's right in the middle of the IBA?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
and there's resi over here, but it is in the middle.
Colleagues, for discussion, debate. Okay. Councillor Morgan, I think you wish to have a comment.
I do indeed. I've actually got grave concerns on this. You know, we're talking about an IBA. We need land for employment. If we start putting houses on every piece of every piece of land, right up against factories that's going to be working 24/7, those factories I could see will be forced to close because of noise. We've had one recently. It was on the Grand Union Canal, and the boatyard where Councillor Higgins fought tooth and nail to make sure that there was protection there for the boatyard. What protection have we got for the existing companies that actually work there? You know, if we go ahead with this development, we need to make sure we've got protection there for the current businesses.
Okay. Could I invite Mr. Hirani or Mr. McClellan to assist on that matter?
So basically, the prior approval application that allowed the change of use of the existing office, so that the red line of that actually included the entire site, including the parking area front. So in terms of the principle of the use, we've lost the use, so we can't say it's a loss of an existing industrial use. But I take your point. This is a unfettered, largely unfettered industrial business area that can operate 24/7. It is also one of the sites that's included in our Article 4, proposed Article 4 direction, which, if unopposed by the Secretary of State, will go through in November, which will prevent any further changes of use via permitted development. So any future change of use after November will require permission. I think the view of, in terms of, obviously you're intensifying residential use on this site, but albeit in a new building with modern insulation, modern standards, modern building regs, with a condition agreed by our Environmental Policy Unit. So we're satisfied that it's not going to worsen the existing situation of having the converted building closely adjacent to existing industrial premises.
Councillor Yarrow, then Councillor Duncan, Councillor Higgins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I am concerned, like other members are, that this is a business area, and we are proposing to put what's going to be a recreation area right opposite what is a 24/7 building works. I just want to know if they're going to be able to operate 24/7. I mean, the first thing that happens is somebody's going to get noise abatement onto them and say we can't sleep at night. They're working all night. What will happen? Who will this council fall down upon to say yes, we'll do something about it? You, the people making the noise, will have to stop. And all I'm worried about is we're putting something there which is going to cause friction between the people who are making things and the people who are using it as houses to live in. Also, I'm not happy with having the area where the children are going to play right opposite a 24/7 building works.
Councillor Duncan?
I mean, I sympathise with what people are saying, and of course all these points were raised at the time when the government introduced this new policy measure of saying that office buildings could be converted to residential use under prior approval regs. I'm afraid the site is already lost to us. We're not talking about a site that is in some use where we're proposing residential. It was an office block. The building there has gone already. All this does is put other residential building there. I very much fear that if we don't approve this, we would lose this on appeal and probably have costs awarded against us because the site has the use. We can't object on grounds of use. I'm appreciating everything you say, and they were concerns that I think all of us had and shared, but this is the situation we are in. Our hands are tied on these, and I think that I'm not quite sure what it is under the prior approval. There are two matters that you can comment on that you have some say in, but that doesn't seem to have stopped whole business parks in this borough from being converted into residential. So I'm afraid we do have to recognise that situation. We do have to be sensible about it and not go down a road that is going to cost this council money only to lose.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Before I bring you in, if I may, Councillor Higgins, can I just take from officers or maybe even legal, the assertion made there that this is land designated for residences now by way of the permitted development, that's accepted. Whether or not the intensification of the use of that can be resisted on the grounds of the disturbance to future occupiers of those properties from the IBA. That's my question. Is that a ground or not a ground?
Well, I think the view officers have taken is that given the comments we have from EPU, given the noise survey submitted with the application, and given the condition proposed by EPU, it would be difficult to sustain that as a reason for refusal. But members may reach a different...
Councillor Higgins?
Oh yeah, where do I start? Right, first thing, it's very badly designed. I mean, that's the first thing that strikes me straight away. Can officers just remind me, on the boatyard, we came up with we left it with delegated powers to Mr. Rogers to come up with something to protect business interest in that area. Can someone remind me whether that did happen or didn't happen? I can't quite remember.
I can remember that there was a commercial building as integral to the residential that was protected to retain as a noise barrier between the boatyard and the residences.
Yeah, the thing that for me is that I think obviously we've got a bit of politics, I suppose, has already been brought up. The idea behind it was to actually, there was a lot of offices, buildings that were empty and not being used, and to get residents in there. But also the naivety that we would thought we'd have better designers to come in and design something to convert these brown spaces. My issue here is that I think the amenity area is in a very, very poor situation. I don't even know we've got fences there, or what is the situation? Have we got something of kids play there? Also, playing such near such all the air pollution in that area as well. That's what concerns me even more. Do we then state that we should then, if we're going to approve this, that those buildings there then should have air conditioning on them? Because the air quality in that area is very, very poor. So there's many areas for me that I'm really concerned about. But the main concern is I just need, I just want to make sure that, you know, if you live above a chip shop, you're going to smell chips. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have a problem with someone going in and buying places like this. But I'm very, very concerned that I believe that we need to, these are small businesses around there. We need to protect them. We need to make sure that they are the driving force to get this country back in order after the mess of the last government, so the last Labour government. So that's my bit of politics.
Come on, let's leave politics out of this, please. Let's not go down the politics line. Thank you. No, let's leave it there, please, everybody. Councillor Ahmed Bolana first, and then Councillor Stead.
Thank you, Chairman. On the basis of air quality and traffic noise, it will be horrendous noise. I'm not comfortable to support this application, and also we cannot simply just approve this application because we have fear of losing an appeal. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stead?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Was it correct that this area has been empty for a long time before it came up with this plan?
Officers?
I'd have to refer to the previous application for the prior approval, but I believe that the office building was vacant for a number of years before the conversion, but that isn't one of the criteria for assessing whether or not a prior approval is acceptable, so it is kind of irrelevant.
Okay, the crux of the matter, sorry, Councillor Curling, please.
Thank you, Chair. I share many of the concerns that have been raised. However, this is, you know, the principle of the change of use to residential has been established, and I think it would lose on appeal. And if it does lose on appeal, we sort of we could lose out on imposing some of the conditions that we want to impose on it. So it could work out more detrimental if we refuse and then is turned over by appeal. The noise and air quality issues have all been covered in the report. Page 50 and 51 covers all of those. So, you know, I mean, they are covered, and I can't see, you know, turning those justifications into reasons for refusal. So, I mean, I'm inclined to support the application, but with a few reservations, which I think have been catered for by the conditions.
Okay, Mr. Harani, do you want to try and draw together the arguments that are being put? I mean, the case has been well made that the use of this site as residential is a given. That's happened. The issue more is if the intensification of this, the impact on the future viability of the industrial business area. I'll leave that to you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can just sort of summarise the issues that have been raised. The issue in relation to it being located in an industrial business area, designated industrial business area, I don't think members or your officers will be able to defend a decision which says in principle it's not acceptable here because the site has already been removed, as it were, from an industrial or business use. So the principle of it, I think, is something that we would find difficult to defend. The issues that members have raised about the residential environment in terms of the impact on future occupants, those are issues that have been covered in the report, but if members are unsatisfied with that, then those are issues that could form reasons for refusal if members wished. The third issue that members raised was the quality of the amenity space, and again, if members felt, again, we've hopefully covered that in the report, but again, if members considered that to be unacceptable, then that would also be able to form a reason for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. One issue of clarification for me. At what point do we require children's play areas to be brought in, please?
Well, it's entirely a two-bed scheme, so we're not expecting, it's not defined as family housing. I appreciate two-bed units could be used as family housing. We have calculated a potential child yield for the new scheme, and that would generate a requirement, I believe, for 40 square metres of children's play, dedicated children's play space based on the London plan formula. So there is enough space, but obviously, given the nature of the site, yeah.
Okay. Let's try and draw things together if we can, so we take this forward. Councillor Higgins?
Well, what the point that the planning officer, the planning team manager said is I agree with. I just don't think this is strong enough. I don't think the air quality things are strong enough. I don't think the amenity is strong enough. It's just badly designed, and it could. We saw other applications that are against the canal are better designed than this one, and if it was better designed than this one, and also people want to live on the canal, so they want to look over the canal. I don't understand why they're so far away. The buildings are so far away. So there's many aspects of design. I think the design is poor. I don't have a problem with that. It's been converted into housing. That's not really the issue here. The issue here, and which I'm very surprised from the other side, is that usually when we have things that are about air quality and amenity spaces and things, we're jumping up and down. I can remember that same situation in the last application about the boatyard. This one is it's far worse than that, and there's no feel that they felt this is acceptable. I just don't understand it. So that's my view on it. So I would, on those reasons for refusal, that's what I would put forward.
Thank you. I would like to maybe bring in officers, but the issue of design is. Let me open that one for Mr. Harani to answer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not, in terms of its appearance, I think it would again be difficult for us to justify a reason for refusal given the mixed design of developments that are in the area. If Councillor Higgins is referring to its siting in relation to the canal and so on, again, that's a difficult one. But so in terms of its appearance and siting, I think a reason for refusal based on that would be difficult for us to defend, given the surrounding development that's there.
Okay, thank you. So we're coming down to the principle of the development's fine. The issue is around whether or not the future residents can be adequately protected from noise, air pollution, and whether or not the amenity space is adequate for a children's play area alongside an industrial park. They're the fundamentals. That will be the ground. So, what are we doing on this matter then? What is the issue? How are we taking this forward?
Excuse me, Chair. I didn't think that we were saying that they had to have mechanical ventilation to this, did they? No. The air quality is not at a level that needs that. I mean, yes, I am concerned about air quality, as you know, and I'm very much concerned when people are in places where they can't open the window, but although it's on an industrial estate, it is next to a canal where presumably there will be quite a corridor of fresh air rather than pollution blowing down it.
Okay, officers, the issue about scrubbers for the air pollution and whether or not it's applicable in this area?
Not sought by the Environmental Protection Unit. It is in an air quality management area, but well, like most of London, large parts of London are in it, if not the whole of it. It just is one of those where we will monitor air impact, and schemes will be made need to prove that they are air quality neutral as much as they can, and this scheme does that.
Okay, just for my assistance then, are we expecting the residences to be able to open their windows or not because of this? And the expectation is they will be able to open it with the noise immediately opposite from the industrial business area, and that's okay. That's the view.
Sorry.
Councillor Higgins.
So that is the point, is that if we're talking about giving the residents a chance, we would have these properties right butting up to the canal where they're which I don't believe. I think water, I know oxygen turns into water, but I don't think it does it the other way around. But then maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a scientist. But you know, that's the point. The point is that we have to stand up for the people. That it's our duty to stand up for the people to make sure that these three places that are going to be built are the right buildings in the right locations to support the residents that will buy them. That's my point. And at this point, I don't know whether we've done a survey of the area of what type of businesses are in. Are there any businesses that are making, I don't know, using chemicals or whatever in that area? I wouldn't know that. But the point is that there's two sides to the coin. One, we need to protect small business, but we also need to make sure that the developments in these areas are adequate for purpose. This is not sticking a bit of amenity land at the top end where it's so far away from the flats that the parents can't even see the children playing. It really does concern me.
Thank you. Point well made. Okay. So the issue comes down to the amenity of future residents regarding noise, disturbance and amenity of play, quality of the amenity space. Okay. Is that where we're coming to?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Somebody going to now stick their head above the parapet? Thank you, Councillor Higgins.
I'll move it.
You're moving what? You're removing to overturn the officer's recommendations. Councillor Ahmed Walana is seconded. I draw your attention to all of the addendum sheet issues. I also want to draw the attention to the fact that this does deliver some affordable housing, which is of value, and you know it is with a bit of a heavy heart. But I also agree that the points you've made around the disturbance, noise, and amenity space are, I believe, very valid issues. Just check with Mr. Harani whether or not that is a position that officers feel is supportable.
That is a position or a decision which members obviously will have to make, but it's issues that are relevant to the siting of the building. So if members consider that the siting of the building within this location will result in issues which cannot be overcome by the conditions that are proposed, then the decision would be that they go for a refusal.
Okay. So it was proposed and seconded by Councillor Higgins, Councillor Ahmed Balana. So this is for overturning officer's recommendations. Show of hands on that one then, please. 4. Those against? 3. And abstentions? 1. So that's 4, 3, 1.
Chair, can we record our dissent, please?
Of course you may. Oh, that's being. Thank you. Let's please. Come on, guys. We normally get along on a planning committee very well without descending into politics, and we don't need to do that. So let's just try and stay focused on the issues before us. Thank you.
I can just summarise that the application was refused on the basis of the impact of noise, disturbance and quality of the amenity space being provided for future occupiers, and that the reasons for refusal will need to be agreed with yourself and
Labour lead. Yeah, and I believe reference has been made to children in there, so you need to draw into that the quality of play area, outdoor play area for children adjacent to.
Just a quick point. We have to we really understand that housing in London is very expensive. More and more families are now moving into 2-bedroom flats. That should be always considered in these areas. It's very important, and that's all I'll say, that, especially with affordable housing. So.
Agreed. I don't think there's any point in that. We'll move on now, please, to agenda item 7.
You just voted against that? No, the point. Look after it.
Come on, we've finished that one. We'll now move on to no, you cannot, sir. Sorry, thank you. Now move on to agenda item 7, please. Fannock House, 1 Station Approach, Ruislip. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks the demolition of an existing office building and the redevelopment of the site to provide a 4-storey building with basement parking comprising 40 residential units. Members deferred this application on the 14th of March, Major Applications Committee, in order for the following issues to be addressed. The proximity of units, and particularly balconies to the bus terminus, and the detrimental impact this would have on the amenity of future residents as a result of noise disturbance and poor air quality. that it's not appropriate to have disabled parking in the basement, that a revised ground floor plan removing the requirement for obscurely glazed window to the bedroom unit in the ground floor unit to the rear is provided, that amended landscaping scheme is provided to show defensible space between the ground floor habitable room windows and the communal gardens, and that confirmation that the concerns of Hillingdon's flood risk officer have been dealt with, and confirmation that the scheme cannot deliver affordable housing. The following has been submitted to address these concerns. The projecting, and I'll just go to, obviously members saw these plans previously, but that's this is the bus terminus here, station approach. This is the position of the building, and you'll see some photos. There are some quite significant platted developments already in the area. This is the revised plan. So basically, I'll summarise the revisions. The projecting balconies facing station approach have been removed and replaced by Juliet balconies. With the removal of the balconies, the opportunity has also been taken to increase the width of the planting along station approach down here. The agent has also submitted supporting information advising that the principle of residential development around commuter transport is in line with current government thinking, and the application was accompanied by a noise, vibration and air quality assessment, which concluded that subject to appropriate mitigation, development would not be impacted upon by noise or air conditions arising from the bus terminus. The 4 disabled parking spaces that were previously in the basement have been replaced in the basement. They've been replaced by standard parking spaces, and they're now positioned at surface level next to the approach to the lift to the basement, vehicle lift to the basement. The internal layout of Unit 8 has been revised, so that is now a bathroom, whereas previously it was a bedroom, so it no longer requires a habitable room window. That has also done away with the need for any additional landscape buffer along here. The application's response to concerns raised by the Council's water and flood risk officer set out in the addendum at the last committee meeting has now been incorporated into the main body of the report. To summarise, the water and flood risk officer is satisfied with appropriate conditions. The scheme meets relevant policy requirements for sustainable drainage and the mitigation of flood risk. A financial viability appraisal has been submitted with the application, and it has been independently assessed, and that assessment confirms that the scheme currently would not support affordable housing. However, a review mechanism is included in the recommended heads of terms for the Section 106 agreement should permission be granted. So if there's an uplift in prices, that will be captured in that, hopefully. The additional information and clarification provided by the applicant is considered to address members' concerns in the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Section 106 heads of terms set out in the report as amended in the addendum. Thank you. So that's an elevation for you. So you can see there's I'll just quickly run through. So that's a large residential building behind it, and I've got there's some visualisations of what it would look like, and there's some photos of what's in the area. So you can see large residential buildings quite close by, and there's another one. So that's the bus terminus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins, then Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got what all we all wished for last time. It's great to see officers and planning and developers working together. I think good scheme. I would go with officers' recommendation. I'm sure there's others to say, but Thank
you very much. I'll bank that one if I may. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of items. On the addendum, it actually says item 6, not item 7. But I do, actually, on a serious note, though, I do have an issue with the refuse lorries. How are they supposed to obtain the large green refuse bins? Are we expecting the lorry to park actually on the junction itself, or to reverse out onto the main road? Please, can the officer advise?
Yes, actually I should point out we may have to reinsert a condition that the addendum says we should take out, or something similar. So basically this is the refuse store here, this is Pembroke Road here, this area here is a waiting area for refuse. So basically we need a condition, a waste strategy condition, that these refuse bins are left here on collection day. It's a process we've done elsewhere. At the previous chair's call over, it was suggested that we might not need a delivery and service plan for a relatively small residential scheme, so we took it out. But of course, we do need something to manage the waste pick up there, so we're proposing to put something back.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. The vehicle itself will be parked on the junction of Pembroke Road and Station Approach, making it difficult for vehicles coming down Pembroke Road to turn into Station Approach, and actually making it a traffic hazard.
Can I pass it on to my highways colleague?
That is correct. We're not expecting them to reverse into the side. They'll have to stop at the junction. Wherever there are waiting restrictions, councils' vehicles are exempt, and they can stop on the waiting restrictions to pick up the refuse.
Okay, the issue then is to allow this to go ahead. We have to sacrifice that little bit and have refuse vehicles. The only other minor point I would have would be the delivery vehicles, as this is moving towards it's a low car density development. We might expect people to be using delivery of shopping. It doesn't appear to be a relatively easy way to drop off for that. Is there something that can be done or can be conditioned to make that easy? Because at the moment it would be a drive in and reverse out. Councillor?
Just a suggestion, I don't know whether I should be quiet, but where we're saying we're putting the lay-by for refuge, then maybe they could also use that area for the same for delivery and shopping. As long as they don't do it at the same time, it shouldn't be a problem. But
it would mean losing one of the parking spaces to be kept clear for deliveries. I mean, if that was felt by the highways officer to be an appropriate way forward.
That seems to be the only way out, really. You're expecting deliveries not by articulated lorries for a residential development. It'll be small vehicles which can park in any of these parking spaces if they're vacant.
Okay, well, there we go. So, where are we? Councillor Higgins has suggested we go with the officer's recommendations. Councillor Duncan?
I'd just like to say something. I'm not going to vote for this because, as I made clear last time, I think that we should not be building flats and residential accommodation in areas where you cannot open the window. And much as we had reservations about the last item, you do need to have mechanical ventilation. And I think as long as we keep approving these, it will go through. So I won't be voting for it, but I would suggest that the committee may want to consider that in the landscaping that they require, you can have trees that do absorb pollution, some species more than others, and it helps to filter out some of the pollution so that it is a bit cleaner when it gets to people's lungs. And you may wish to consider that and make that part of the landscaping scheme that's imposed.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful, and I don't think anybody would argue against that. Is that something that we could incorporate? Fine. Okay, we have Councillor Ahmed-Walana. Seconded. Okay. Right. Can we just clarify, is this with or without any changes to it, just with the exception of the refuse?
The refuse and the trees.
Refuse and the trees. Okay.
And actually, do you know what? We should actually make sure that all these trees, when we have development in these areas, it should be one of our conditions.
Okay. So, noting the addendum, changing it from 6 to 7, noting the pages of the addendum with the change to a refuse plan and the trees as part of the landscaping condition. Show of hands, please, on approving of this one. At least one abstention or against? Against. Okay, so that's one against, the rest. Your abstention. Sorry, John. My apologies, I didn't notice. So 2, 4, 6, 6, 4, 1 against, 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end. Thank you.